I really used to complain a lot about how frequent Anbernic releases their devices, because I felt like there was never enough time between releases where somebody might have ordered one and then still not have received it until the next announcement is made. And that announcement might change their purchasing decision. But honestly, I don't think it matters all that much. I haven't heard many people complain, but personally, it always felt kind of weird. But in terms of just my day-to-day life, I do kind of miss it because it gave me a lot to talk about on the channel and just generally with my friends. Always excited to see what comes next. And that really has started to change in these last couple of months. Ambernic has slowly started to release more and more handhelds, seemingly because we're getting deeper into the year. They probably have been working on some of these things in the first part of the year, so it's nice to see that these things slowly starting to trickle out. With our most recent announcement, the Anbernic RG34XXSP, a sort of successor to the previous Ambernic SP device. Not a huge amount has changed. Fundamentally, it's still the same handheld. In terms of even performance, it doesn't really change at all, but the main difference is having dual analog sticks, much like the Mi U Flip. But the caveat for that device being it's not necessarily powerful enough to justify having those analog sticks. At least the Anbernic 34XXSP justifies that performance by now also having analog sticks, because that's something I saw a lot of people do with the original SP device from Ambernic, is playing Dreamcast games and playing games from the N64 and PS1 that just simply don't make a lot of sense to play on a flip style handheld. I get that it's portable and it's out of convenience, but it just is not the way I would want to play these games, even in a hyper portable and convenience based system. It just has to have analog sticks for me to actually enjoy those games. Because if anything that I've learned from the original Nintendo DS, 3D games navigated on a D-pad simply is not very comfortable. But seemingly that is what this device has set out to change. And thanks to it being functionally the exact same handheld as the original Ambernic SP device, just with the addition of analog sticks, it greatly increases the more actual useful aspects of this handheld in terms of what systems you can play. You can now properly play PS1 games pretty much flawlessly on this handheld, and honestly, it's actually kind of perfect for PS1 games. You could also play N64, but that's not perfect emulation still on this level of hardware. I mean, it's not terrible. You'll still be able to play a lot of titles, but you might notice some slowdown here and there, especially games like Wave Race 64, or my personal favorite, Rayman 64. And of course, Nintendo DS is playable, but not every single game will be 100% perfect, but it's good enough for the vast majority of titles, especially if you're playing things like Pokemon. And I don't know when this happened, but I noticed I used to say Pokemon, but now I say Pokemon, and I don't know when that change happened. I'm just sort of realizing that as I am recording this. Just hits the ear weird now, hearing Pokemon instead of Pokemon. Tangent aside, the device comes in 4 colors: GameCube purple, SNES gray and purple, black with rainbow buttons, and a sort of Pikachu edition that is yellow and red. For me personally, I am very much partial to the GameCube purple and the SNES gray and purple. It uses the same 3.4-inch IPS full lamination 720 by 480-inch display. It uses the H700 chipset, which we've all grown to love and hate from all the other Ambernic insert number XX devices. 2 gigs of memory, it has 64 gigs of storage. We can assume this device also potentially probably comes with games on it like many other of their devices, and it lists a huge long library of supported systems. Something that is nice, they have Hall magnet switches. I don't know how reliable that actually is going to end up being in comparison to other Hall effect systems, but it's potentially nice. Yeah, it really remains to be seen when this thing fully comes out. The way I see it, this device is a full response to Miyu's finally releasing their Miyu Flip device, which when that device came out was lauded as, at least in my opinion, some other people's opinions, that it was a better version of the Ambernic SP device, purely because of its dual analog sticks, just making more sense if you wanted to play more 3D titles. But if you wanted to play those titles, it wasn't nearly as powerful enough, limiting you to pretty much only PS1, not necessarily being quite enough for DS, and not necessarily quite enough for a lot of N64 games, which was that device's downside. Oppose that to the Ambernic original SP device, it was incredibly popular. People loved it, but it also was lacking in some aspects for some people who wanted to play more 3D games because of how convenient and amazing the form factor is. People just adore the Game Boy Advance style SP layout. For me, I always found it a bit cramped. My hand starts to cramp up after even just like an hour of play. But some people love it for the nostalgia purposes. For me, I didn't grow up playing with an SP device, so I just use it as it is today, and I'm not a huge fan, but I like it more than traditional DMG style handheld because the clamshell is very convenient for portability's sake and protecting the screen. So this new device from Ambernic, this sort of sequel to that original SP, basically has gone and fixed my only real issue outside of just it being cramped, which is by virtue of its design, sort of done on purpose, so not necessarily an issue when you consider what they were going for, is having the dual analog sticks now, which for most people, they might not end up ever using. But those of you out there like me who do and would use those analog sticks, you are now available to this option, which would drastically improve overall gameplay for certain systems. And hopefully this version of the device with the dual analog sticks will maintain its price point similar to its original counterpart, that being around $60 to $70. And you can even currently get the original SP for $41.99, which honestly, for $42, that is a lot of handheld you're getting. And at that, one of the better ones out there in terms of open source software made by the community. So frankly, if you were in the market for a new handheld, it might not be a terrible choice to get that original SP. Other than that, I would love to hear what you guys think about this device. Are you excited to have an SP handheld with dual analog sticks? Or are you just annoyed it took Miyu finally releasing theirs to get Ambernic to release a revision? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All of the other social media coverage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.